In August 2017, Ellen's Energy Adventure would close at Epcot to make way for a brand new attraction that would make its grand debut in May of 2022. This would be Epcot's first roller coaster and also the first attraction at Walt Disney World to be themed to characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The attraction is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, the second attraction to be themed to the Guardians after Mission Breakout at Disney's California Adventure. And while it did take quite a bit of time for this attraction to open, it was originally supposed to open in 2021, but was of course delayed due to the pandemic. This is a first of its kind omni-mover attraction. It's a spinning coaster, but not really. It's directional spinning, so it points you where the action is. So it doesn't feel like any other spinning coaster you've ever experienced. You know, we've seen spinning coasters before with like Time Traveler especially, where it's a controlled spin, but that just dampens it. It's still largely based off of weight. This is a completely indoor screen-based attraction that points you at very specific moments where there'll be something going on to help enhance your experience. And there's a lot to talk about here. We're going to break it all down, starting with the exterior. We're going to go through the queue, the station, talk about the actual ride experience, then I'll give my overall thoughts at the end of the video. Now, just a brief overview. I've ridden this attraction as of when this video is being recorded 3 times. This is absolutely an attraction that you want to experience as many times as possible. So even at the time this video is being made, I don't even have a full grasp of everything this ride offers, because alone there are 6 different experiences you can get on it, depending on what song plays during the ride. Those songs are September by Earth, Wind & Fire, Disco Inferno by The Tramps, Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, One Way or Another by Blondie, I Ran So Far Away by A Flock of Seagulls, and Conga by Gloria Estefan. The 3 songs that I currently have experienced are Conga, One Way or Another, and I Ran So Far Away. And I loved all of them. They were all great. But unfortunately, because of the way the attraction was set up for pass holder previews, as well as opening with a virtual queue, it does make it rather difficult to get on it. And I'm going to talk about that really towards the end of the video, because unfortunately, Disney doesn't just make it as easy as just hopping in line. But, you know, when I think back to when this attraction was officially announced, one, I was thrilled that Epcot was finally receiving a roller coaster, because I know as a coaster enthusiast for so long, I made fun of Epcot because it was the only Disney park that didn't have one. But man, did they get a heck of an attraction. I think you could absolutely make an argument that this is the best Disney roller coaster. But you know, up until actually riding it, I would have told you that I thought this attraction would have made more sense at Hollywood Studios. It's a movie park, and this is a movie theme. But after riding it, I see why they picked Epcot, and that's mainly because of the queue. It's very Epcot-like. If they went with a queue more in the style of Mission Breakout, which really puts you in a scene from the movie, then it would have made more sense at Hollywood Studios. But I also imagine that land was a bit of an issue over there. They have a lot less space at Hollywood Studios than they do Epcot. This building that Guardians is located in is roughly 4 times the size as Spaceship Earth, at least in terms of volume. And I don't know how accurate this stat is, but I've also been told that this is the most expensive roller coaster ever built. The number I heard was $500 million, which would beat out Hagrid's at $300 million. By myself, I'm not 100% sure I believe that. To me, when I rode this, it did not feel like a $500 million roller coaster. I still would have thought that Hagrid's would have cost more. Hagrid's feels like it costs more. I mean, for one, there's animatronics in it. Oh, but let's walk through this whole experience. Let's start with the entry plaza. And I gotta be honest, overall, this was a little disappointing to me. Don't get me wrong, I love the Novacore ship right out front. It's very cool looking. But the building is very plain. It's boring and gray. I wouldn't say it's that pleasing to look at. It looks cooler from the side, honestly, than it does the front. But there's nothing really around it other than the ship. Nothing was done to that immediate area. It just feels like Epcot. But you know, that was the point they were going for. Doesn't mean I like it, but the start of the attraction is very self-conscious that you're at Epcot. They're not trying to convince you that you are somewhere else like you are at Mission Breakout. Or Galaxy's Edge, they tell you you're on another world. As you're walking through the queue, you'll hear specific references to, yeah, during your stay here at Walt Disney World and Epcot, so it was a very specific choice. The first room that you enter is the Galaxarium. The Disney website describes it as a planetarium-like exhibition showcasing the similarities and differences between Xandar and Earth's galaxies. Xandar is the planet that is largely the focus of this attraction. You can see it in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and the building as a whole is referred to as the Wonders of Xandar Pavilion, the first Otherworld Pavilion. And it absolutely feels like a museum. Even after you exit the Galaxarium, you'll see different models of the planet, some of the ships that you might find. The way they describe it is because the planet is so far away and that you can't be there to experience it, they've come to you to give you a taste of what it's like there. So it's very creative. It is a beautiful queue. Although I'm not going to lie, I am a little disappointed that it isn't a bit more grand during some of the rooms, because the original concept art led us to believe that it would be that way. And that's honestly one of my biggest gripes with this attraction, is there's not a single animatronic in it. Even Mission Breakout has an animatronic rocket, but you won't find anything in the queue or during the ride, pre-show, just screens, which are fine. You know, I mean, they're very crisp, very sleek and modern. Everything looks great. It's just surprising coming from the world's most expensive roller coaster. And personally, I think that there would have been a way for them to bring an animatronic to this attraction. It's just a shame that they didn't. I know one particular moment I do really enjoy during the queue though, is this part where they're actually interviewing the Guardians of the Galaxy post that battle over Xandar. It's very Guardians-esque, has some very quippy moments. A part in particular I like is when Chris Pratt is talking about Epcot, going there as a kid, and he says that he can't wait to experience Horizons and all these different experiences that are no longer at Epcot because he's been off-world. He doesn't know that Epcot has changed so much. I thought it was very clever and fun. I know for a fact they didn't even get Bradley Cooper to voice Rocket, and don't get me wrong, the guy that did it did a good job, but it does kind of take you out of it when you first hear him speak. As you make your way out of the main queue, which first of all doesn't even hold that long of a line, maybe 40 minutes, you'd probably spend most of it in that first Galaxarium room when you're staring up at that ceiling and it's talking to you about Xandar, which, I mean, you could stand in there all day and listen to that thing. It's very cool, and it's sad to me that most people just bypass it. You first enter a holding room before the pre-show. It almost feels a little out of place because there's nothing there. But then pretty soon after, you enter the first pre-show, which first features Glenn Close reprising her role as the Nova Prime, which is a little interesting because technically she's dead, so I don't know how that works. Terry Crews makes an appearance, which was a nice surprise. Makes me wonder if he's going to appear in some of the future Guardians films. One thing I thought was kind of odd is right before they take you to the transportation room, he tells you no phones or recording devices, but no one really listens to him. Everyone's taking pictures and filming anyways. No one really cares, so it just felt kind of odd that they included that moment because it's definitely not being enforced. The next room of the pre-show has this awesome effect that we've seen in a couple different attractions. For one, you can see it in Epcot itself at Journey into Imagination, that last scene. This is probably more similar to that last room in Poseidon's Fury at Islands of Adventure, where they make you appear like you're in one room, they do some flashing lights, everything around you lifts up while you can't see it, and then you realize when the lights come on that you are now in a completely different room. It's awesome. I went into this attraction completely blind. I had not seen any spoilers, and I was not expecting that moment. There's also a very cool effect that comes up right after that with the cosmic generator. They make it disappear. It reminded me of the scene from Tokyo Disney Sea at their Tower of Terror when they make that monkey statue disappear. And that's when we meet our villain, which is one of the Celestials. If you've seen the movie Eternals, which if you haven't, I mean, those beings do make an appearance there. In this case, one of them has stolen the cosmic generator, and so they enlist the help of the Guardians to go take it back. And that is the plot of the ride. So now you're on a ship. It doesn't look like a Guardians ship because it's not really meant to. I know when the first pictures were coming out, I was like, that almost looks more Iron Man-esque, but it's just meant to be a generic transportation ship. I did not realize it was going to be a dual loading station, which is pretty cool to see. Each train is designed to hold 20 passengers, that's 10 rows, 2 across, and they are very accommodating seats. Often on really thrilling roller coasters, some larger guests are turned away because of the seat size, but these are very accommodating. We saw guests of all sizes riding in this attraction, which is great. I recommend sitting in either the front row or the second to last row. I very much enjoyed both experiences. I think most people tell you that the second to last row is the best spot on the coaster, and it's mainly because of the launch. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is marketed as Disney's first reverse launch coaster. It's not the first coaster at the resort to go backwards, that would be Expedition Everest. When you dispatch, the first room you enter, you see Rocket and Peter Quill talking to you about how this is probably not going to work, but hey, let's be optimistic. Drax says we got to stop this unusually large man. You start climbing up a lift. This big, imposing music is playing. It has this very grand feeling. And you exit the tunnel and you see all the stars of space. You pass through one of the jump points, and now you are above Earth. You see one of the Celestials hovering above Earth, the Guardian ship, and you take this 180-degree turn, rotating as you're doing it. So now you are facing the same direction as you were originally, but the train has turned around backwards. So if you were in the front, you're now in the back. And that's when the Guardians say, we're going back. Everything goes dark, and then boom, you start to take off, and then your song starts playing. I'm going to assume that all of the songs go really well with this attraction. The only one I've heard iffy reviews on is Everybody Wants to Rule the World, just because that's a bit of a slower song. I've heard that one described as more of a floaty feeling when you ride this, versus the other ones are a bit more fast-paced. You see all these big electrical sparks, you're flying backwards and you rise up and now you're in that giant building. And it is pitch black in there. I mean, it is like Space Mountain dark. The difference is, in addition to all the stars, you also have these wraparound, very high-def screens where all the action is taking place. The actual layout is largely made up of turns, quick transitions, and helices, although there is one part where there's a second small lift that almost feels like a booster launch. Actually, during my second ride on Guardians, we came to a dead stop at that block and sat there for a bit, which meant that the block zone ahead of it was occupied. And so we were sitting there waiting for it to clear, but then in order to get back up to speed, they essentially had to launch us up through that second moment, so it was a lot more powerful than you would take it normally. We got the full force of that hill. And it was pretty cool. But overall, this is a very long ride, and it's just pure fun. It's not an airtime focused layout, but there is a moment or two of floater airtime, don't get me wrong. The coaster pulls a pretty decent amount of G-forces. I know one question that some people are having is, will this coaster make you nauseous? And the answer to that is no, as long as you look where they want you to look. The vehicles have a very smooth rotation to different parts of the ride, and your nature is to look all around you, and that's fine. But if you start trying to look backwards or really try and figure out how the attraction is working, that's when it might start to make you a little dizzy. But this is a very cool experience. I mean, you can't really see the coaster track at all, and you definitely can't see any supports. They hide them very well. It's actually incredible. And Disney's done something that is very difficult here, and that is that they have told a story the whole time while you continue to move. It's not like Hagrid's where you stop and go, which works for the story, but this, you keep a good pace the whole time. That being said, it is a little hard to follow what's going on. It will absolutely take multiple rides to get a good grasp of the attraction, which is a shame because it's actually very hard to ride this multiple times. But you gotta listen closely because you'll hear commentary from the Guardians in addition to the song that's playing. So if you're just focusing on the music, you're gonna completely miss what the Guardians are saying. And there's some quippy lines in there. But that doesn't mean that there's something going on at all times. There's lots of moments where you're just flying through space and there's nothing really popping up in terms of effects or lights. You essentially are flying around to try and capture the Celestial. You pop around these different points in space. The Guardians are able to capture him with the help of the Nova Corps. They get the generator back and then send you back to Earth. And that's one of the coolest moments is you actually do this helix around the moon like you're orbiting it, and then you orbit Earth like you're coming in for a landing. It is so cool and creative. Honestly, that's probably my favorite part of being inside the building is wrapping around the moon. Now, I will talk a bit about a downside here, and I know not everyone's gonna agree with this, but with this attraction, the Guardians are involved, but you almost feel a little bit disconnected from them because we're always watching them from like far away. During the ride, they're in their ship. I don't know if it really feels like you're riding with the Guardians. And personally, I didn't feel a sense of danger or urgency on this attraction like you do when you ride something like Escape from Gringotts, where there's literally Voldemort right there. Having a Celestial as the villain didn't really do anything for me. It felt like he was just there because they had to have a reason for the attraction to exist. Like, why else would you be going into space? You're going to be focusing much more on the coaster maneuvers than you will the actual story that's going on during the attraction. I think it is much easier to follow what is going on with Hagrid's than it is Cosmic Rewind, which gets me into my final thoughts of the coaster. And here's what I gotta say. I love it, but don't overthink it. Because once you start to overthink this attraction, the less sense it makes, which is why I'm here to now overthink it. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind feels like the greatest hits of all the Disney World coasters, and that's why this one is the best. It takes elements from all of them. Now, did we need this ride? Well, Epcot desperately needed a coaster. But other than the rotating seats and the IP, there's not anything fundamentally different about this ride that makes it stand out from the other coasters at the resort. Like, we already have a coaster that's flying through space with Space Mountain. We have a coaster that goes backwards with Expedition Everest. We have a coaster that's in the dark that plays music where stuff is popping up with Rock and Roller Coaster. And coming soon, Tron at Magic Kingdom isn't going to be that different either. It's just kind of interesting that they decide to go with this at all. But for the average person, I mean, you're gonna love it. Now, what would have made it better? I mean, like I said, I would have loved to see some animatronics in it and a storyline that actually fits within the MCU, which is a whole nother conversation. I mean, because this coaster actually makes no sense in the context of the movies. Like, they're interviewing Groot about the battle over Xandar, but he's big, even though he's supposed to be turned into a tiny Groot. And then, as I mentioned, the Nova Prime is dead, so like, what's up with that? But I can forgive it because in the long run, it doesn't really matter. And for that reason, I am giving it a 10 out of 10. I don't think it's a perfect coaster. Like I said, if you don't overthink it, it's no big deal at all. Bottom line is, Disney came up with one heck of an attraction here. I can't wait to get back on it and collect all 6 of the song sequences. The only downside is, in order to ride it, you have to get a boarding group, which is a whole ordeal. If you did Rise the Resistance when that was going on, you know how stressful it is. We just put out a vlog from our opening day experience where you could see we actually missed the 7 a.m. groups. We woke up to secure a spot and they were gone within 1 second. But when we were actually in the park for the 1 o'clock session, we were able to secure one. I'd much rather you just get in line for this, but I mean, the perks of it, I guess, is that when it is your time to ride, you don't have to wait very long for it. So you can see how the system has its plus and minuses. But I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind? Do you agree with the points that I've made? Do you think I missed anything? If you disagree, let me know why. If you're new to the channel, I'd love if you could subscribe. We do coaster reviews from rides all across the world. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.